Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Because Football podcast. I am Andrew Bagley, your host. And today we're going to welcome to our pod Joe Medcalf. Joe is the senior manager of group sales at the New England Revolution of MLS. We're going to talk about what goes into his day-to-day role. How are group sales different than typical individual sales or season tickets? What's the story? What's the connection with those fans, with those clients like, and a bit about the Revolution's role in New England. It's an OG club from the beginning, right? The very first MLS days. Actually, New England was the site of the first MLS Cup final, and I got to learn a lot about this soccer-rich region through our road trip to the World Cup Series. So excited to dig into that. Joe, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I appreciate you taking the time here. And we're going to get into the Revs and kind of the day-to-day of your role, but got to hear first memory of the game, and how did footy bring you to the U.S.? How did footy bring you to this point where you find yourself now?
Yeah, it shaped my life, really. As you can tell, I've got a really thick Massachusetts accent here. So originally, I'm from Hull, which some people know. I'm from Hull City. We are in the Premier League for a little while. But it's a town in East Yorkshire. I was a local fan, which in England, unless you are a local fan, you definitely receive some stick about picking a team that might be better or, look better or have better players. There may have been a small window where I liked Man United for obvious reasons, but generally kind of keep that to myself. So there you go. I've just thrown that out there now. So growing up, I was obviously indoctrinated in soccer culture. I'm a lifelong Hull City fan. Like I said, I sort of had to be at first, but then it became our family activity. So I have an older brother. He's 2.5 years older than me. And basically me, my brother, my mum and my dad would travel and watch Hull City. Not only every home game, we had season tickets, but we also went to every away game for 10 years.
Love it.
And we managed to get to everyone. I'll give my brother some stick because he definitely missed 3 or 4, but me and my dad managed to get
Unforgivable.
Yeah,
3 or 4
exactly.
over a 10-year period. Where's his loyalty? Wow.
Well, yeah, one of them he had to play. He's actually a very good player, but I stuck with it. Me and my dad managed to get to those extra couple. And at that time, Hull City were in Division 3, which is now essentially League 2, I guess is the official term for it.
Okay.
But we were, I can't even think of how the word is. We weren't great. That's probably the best way to describe it.
There is a word for it. It's not that PG, but there is a word I think that typically you guys use to describe. But there's nothing. I want to tap on the away side piece. I finally got to experience an away day, the glory, the mystique. Is there anything more noble and valiant than an away day in the UK? I got to experience it with my club, Port Vale. We took the coach down to Gillingham. But what was your guys' usual mode? Were you train? Would it be the organized coach? Sometimes driving? Like what was typically your away day routine?
Yeah, because it was our family and it was our family unit. Generally, we would drive. That said, every year we'd always choose 2 games to go on the coach. And it was always a different experience because obviously on the coach, you're chatting about the game, there's songs, there's always 10, 20, 30 people that are too drunk by the time that we've even arrived at the stadium, which adds a bit of fun in the bus itself. But yeah, generally we were in our car, and then obviously once you get out and you immediately, once you've parked and you're out there, you can feel the energy. And it's such an easy thing, like to kind of pocket why. It's simple to think about is obviously you get fans, and then you get the subsection of fans that are loyal, committed enough to go and travel to whatever location. So you'd always find that usually either the further locations or the games that weren't, we'll call them marquee games, like local rivalries, which Scunthorpe or Grimsby for us were like their local rivals. So if you were going to like a random team like Southend, for example, it would generally be a smaller following, but you knew that every single person that was in that stand was fully committed, fully into everything that was going on. And that's probably the pocket of why away games are that, because you're not going to get that person that's just in the away section to just experience the game. They'll probably be somewhere else in the stadium, but yeah, some really amazing memories.
Do you have a favorite ground then, a favorite away stadium that you've been to?
It's funny because the first place my head goes to is the opposite, which is the worst grounds
that
I went
to.
to.
Give us that too if you want.
Yeah, well, and for the wrong reasons, but like late in the 90s, early 2000s, both of the Welsh grounds, both Swansea and Cardiff,
Hmm.
were tricky. There was a couple of times where I vividly remember their fans ripping seats out of the section and launching them over into the away section. Swansea, in the parking lot where we were at, we would park, like everybody, all the away fans. Obviously, there's always kind of like segmented sections to get in, but somehow a load of Cardiff fans managed to kind of squeeze through. And I remember one time released all of the police at the time, released all of the police dogs. And I remember being very young. I think I was like 11 maybe at the time. And I remember asking my dad going, how do the dogs know who to come after?
The accents, right? They can tell the kit you're wearing.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, there was definitely some tricky. I was never really. I mean, obviously there was some unsafe times, but luckily, I was never in a spot where I was kind of like, this is really too far. It was always just about on the line, but it always seemed to go a little bit further at those two places for some reason. So I'm not entirely sure why, but
a favorite, maybe where you didn't have the dogs sicked on you.
Well, it's probably got to be the local rivalry. It's probably, and the other side is just, you remember goals and you remember games. So one goal I vividly remember, I'm going to kick myself because I don't remember who the opponent was, but I remember my favorite player of all time. His name's Gary Brabin, played for Hull City kind of in the 98, 99, 2000 era. He was part of what we called it the Great Escape season. Essentially, the club went out of business. Essentially, the doors were locked at one point, and we had this sort of like really working class player base. And Gary Brabin, before he became a midfielder for Hull City, was actually a doorman. He was a bouncer, so he was kind of in the midfield, like. And he used to kind of like dominate the midfield. So at the time when I was kind of sort of 9-10 years old, for me that was just the best thing ever. But my best player, Gary Brabin, there was a goal kick, and you'll think I'm making this up, but this is what happened. Just a normal goal kick. It kind of like cleared just past the halfway line. A couple of people moved out the way. Gary Brabin sort of moved somebody out the way and just kind of went for a header to try and get it back into the opponent half. The header had so much power that it sort of went forward with like an angle on 45 degree and like went straight into the top angle of one of the corners. I think he was just in front of the halfway line, but it was just like this rocket from his head. And I remember just being like, I can't believe that just that just happened.
So it was like a 40-yard headed goal, basically.
Essentially, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Maybe even a bit further. It might have even been 50 or something. We got to dig
that up on YouTube. There's got to be footage of that, hopefully.
Hopefully there is, and I haven't just like, this was one of my dreams that I had when I was a kid, but this is definitely...
We're gonna trust you. We're gonna say it was some plane of reality that happened in, or that Gary Brabin definitely had it in his locker.
Yeah.
But then the game brought you to the States and coming here to coach. You didn't necessarily have that same connection. What were some of your first realizations, your first insights into like, hey, this is what culture is in the United States, right? And maybe specifically in New England.
Well, when I came over, I was kind of in the Baltimore kind of region. I kind of traveled up and down the East Coast, so it gave me a bit more of an understanding of the different areas. I actually think New England out of all of the areas that I went to was the most, I guess they got it the most. There was less, here's why people are interested in this game and here's why it's amazing. But there's definitely been, so I came over in 2009 in the summer, and from then till now, the change is insane in terms of just like normal, conversations, going to just regular bars, and instead of there being just college football on or just, whatever was on at the time, now when you go into bars, there's just as many people watching Premier League games or whatever else is going on. But I just felt at the time, I felt like I was just constantly educating people of why I like soccer. And obviously because I was coaching, I was working with a lot of young players, and then families were, at that time when I was coming in, the adults nearly, if I had a dime for every time one of those parents came to me and said, I've never really watched soccer, or I've never really been into soccer, or sometimes they'd be, I played it a bit in high school and it was kind of fun to keep fit type of thing. Whereas now the families that come out to the stadium and everything else, they're kind of like this new generation of they didn't only play soccer, they get it. They've had obviously the luxury of seeing different sort of soccer coming in. The MLS has got bigger. If I'm being really honest, the first few years that I was here, so from like 2009 to 2015, really, I didn't really pay any attention to US soccer, the MLS. because I was just kind of doing my own
You can be
thing.
forgiven for that, Joe. There are many of us, many Americans that still don't, although we have come so far in terms of MLS and things. But yeah,
Yeah.
imagine it's night and day. Like you may have even almost felt some sort of like loss and grief, right? Of not of
Yeah, and it
having
was
that
easy
like
at that
weekly
point for me to,
experience.
yeah, it was easy for me at that point to kind of write it off. I mean, we call them soccer snobs in the office. There's still a lot of them, which, they will still look down their nose at the MLS and the USL and anything that, doesn't deem itself like the Premier League or the Bundesliga or whatever. I think it's a bit harsh to do that when you look at how long, it's not only how long those leagues have been running and the finances that are based on those things, but also just the culture and energy and the athletic sort of directions of young people in those countries, to try and there's still a long way to go in this country. So
No, I agree. The last 15 years have been huge, so have a long way to go. And it's very nuanced. It's very complex because using New England as an example, the amount of football history in New England rivals, any pretty much from like Providence up to like Boston area. The amount of like you can trace the game back like 150 years, right? It just hasn't maintained like a mainstream influence and role. American soccer in general has been this roller coaster ride and ups and downs. Fortunately, with MLS, we've had the most sustained and like financially secure version of that. Now USL is filling in some of those other parts of the pyramid, and I think it's part of this like golden era. But with New England, with that, we talk about the soccer snobs, this very like fragmented nature of the American soccer community. Also has to do with the beauty of how diverse the country is. So going around Rhode Island and Massachusetts, you're going to see what you don't see in other parts of the country. You're going to see just as many like Brazilian or
No, that's a fair
Portuguese
point. That's a really fair
jerseys,
point.
right?
Yeah.
Versus, in other areas, you're going to see more like Mexican clubs or Barca Madrid. Like you're still going to see that, but it's really a mix, and people bring that, and that's based on different generational and immigration patterns and different things like that too that kind of feed in together. But I want to lean into the story of the Revs and connection to the community because it is an OG club. It is still a team that has been kicking for that amount of time. It's recognized. But when I was going around, I knew of the Revs. I made a trip to Gillette. I did some coverage, but as I was talking to people in New England, they didn't come up as often as I imagined. It was more like, I mean, part of that is a recency bias, I think. You have some of the most exciting stories in American soccer happening right now in New England, Portland Hearts of Pine, Vermont Green, even like Rhode Island FC with a new stadium. There's a lot of things are happening. University of Vermont had just won it on the men's side. So there's a lot of these like newer things that are just younger and sexier and are catching the eye, right? But that being said, I did my research, and over the past few years, the Revs are still a top 5, definitely top 10 in terms of attendance, right? People were giving a knock, oh, they're out in Foxborough. It's just far from everything. Recently, you guys have announced the plans to do a stadium closer to Boston, but there's a lot of these pieces where it just felt like the Revs, yeah, we know they're here, but it maybe wasn't exactly galvanizing people as much as I expected to hear. I'm curious your take, obviously being within the club, but what do you feel like is the story of the Revs and that connection with the soccer community?
Yeah, well, I think the last part you said there about being sort of one club for such a huge area is a massive benefit, especially if you think about my role being in ticket sales. We can kind of reach a way further audience with the fact that we're marketing ourselves as kind of one region. We actually had a big marketing campaign on that fairly recently. But that also, on the detrimental side, kind of leads to when you're trying to framework what is the Revs, kind of what does it stand for when you have your Vermont Green that is specifically, that state, Rhode Island, very similar. That's been somewhat of a challenge. You add into that the fact that we as an organization have been trying to be in the Boston city limits for, I mean, I can't even put a number on it. I've only been at the Revolution for 6 and a bit years, but we have a lot of very like heavy longevity, especially in our ticket sales and marketing departments. We have got people that have been 20 plus years, some people from the start. And even talking to them, they'll tell you that they don't remember a day that we weren't trying to find this stadium. And because of that goal from the ownership, and that's kind of where we were driven. A ton of our energy and marketing and presence has been pushed to the Boston specific area. A lot of stuff we do is around Boston, and I think sometimes that alienates a strong word, but it doesn't capture your person that's in Providence or your person that's in a different location, Connecticut or anywhere else in the New England region on a bigger scale. So those areas and the way we've had to drive the club in sort of a further reach has been more in the ticket sales department. It's been more kind of reaching out to people, connecting with families, bringing in events, working with state associations, especially on the youth soccer side and that side of things. But if I was to place a reason why people aren't as energetic about the revolution, the combination would be what I just said. So the spread and the fact that the identity, I guess is the word, isn't as close knit. Yeah. The OG piece that you said, been around forever, and those first years, and when I say first years, like first decade plus, the experience at Gillette Stadium. I mean, most of the stadium was shut down. It was one side of the stadium, 6,000 people. Probably felt I never went to any of those games, but when you talk to some of the longer serving staff, they will tell you that it was pretty brutal. At that point, they found it sort of visually, they were like, is this ever gonna obviously now we're kind of averaging in the mid-20s, which at Gillette Stadium still feels like about 500 people sometimes.
Right. There's massive, the Pats are packing that out, or you guys are going to have the World Cup. It's a challenge that we've seen a lot and it definitely does have its, because you put 23, 24, 25 in a stadium of that size, that thing is rocking. You guys are getting all these plaudits for having one of the best atmospheres in MLS and setting all these records, but it just feels a little bit differently with this larger. But like you said, now that the solution is on the way with the new stadium proposal and
the whole organization is going to completely, it's going to change the direction, what the stadium experience is, how we can leverage obviously being in the city and different sort of on the sort of player side, and how we recruit players, and that side of things is going to probably change too. But that's one of the challenges we've had. I guess the other side of things as well is, if and maybe this is just a my opinion thing, I feel, and this is a little strong of an opinion, but I feel like New Englanders are a little spoiled for sports. There's always, because of, you got the Red Sox, you got the Celtics, you got the Bruins, you got the Patriots. There's always one of those teams that's doing pretty well. Or usually there's one of those teams that are doing pretty well. Having been in New England a while, the fandomship in this area, people do. One year they're massive Bruins fans, and it does coincide with maybe that year the Bruins are in the playoffs and doing great. And then the next year they've been the biggest Patriots fan for years, but apparently it only came out when the Patriots got into the playoffs.
Sounds like Philly, honestly. Being from Philadelphia, it's similar. Recently we've had some more success. It hasn't been quite as consistent, let's say, but it's very similar. Where I always
do you think it's a US thing? Do you think it's a US thing? Because probably, I do feel like you guys love
general, because the nature of it is like you're gonna have your core like hockey people and baseball people where like that's their number one, but then success just, and it's not, I think bandwagon is like, when I think of a bandwagon fan, it's more of like, I would kind of call myself that, where I was young, I was like a Packers fan because when I was 6 years old, Brett Favre was the greatest thing ever. Yeah. Now my grandmother was from Wisconsin, so I could like weasel my in and be like, well, yeah, there's a family connection. But more or less I was like a bandwagon fan. Like you were with Man United, right, back in the day. So everybody wants to support a generally successful team. So I think it is a general U.S. thing, and just with so many sports and things vying for your attention, then to get you to really care and lock in if they're getting a run. And then everybody gets swept up in it, and I think it's that togetherness piece. But I would agree with you that, that obviously makes your guys' job a little bit tougher. Like, you're competing with a lot there in terms of people's attention, dollars, time, and those decisions too.
We did have the one season in 2021 when we won the Supporters Shield, and at that point we got the most points ever. The history of MLS. Inter Miami have obviously taken that over now, unfortunately. The challenge may be that fans in this region kind of jump onto that. I don't know if we necessarily saw as much of, like, we call it like a snowball effect. I don't know if we saw as much of it, but at the same time, we also got smacked out in the first round of the playoffs to New York City. So I guess there's tons of people that don't even pay attention right until you're in the Eastern
Exactly.
Conference final, and then obviously
Yeah.
the actual cup itself. And if you win, then that's the time they'll
That
jump
was the
on board.
moment. Yeah. But I think the interesting piece with your role with group sales I want to get into is we're talking about performance, we're talking about this cultural piece of the soccer snobs and who's your real Revs people. We can have this larger conversation of like being an MLS person and a soccer person is different in the United States. But in your role in group sales, like are those conversations that come up? Because I feel like that's a very different audience. It's a very different segment generally you're trying to connect with that maybe isn't as attached to either performance and success on the field. Let's say the conversation is different for who you're talking to versus trying to get someone to be a season ticket holder, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. On the bigger scale, we talk about it with our whole club as there's soccer fans and there's sports fans, and we're always trying to figure out what type of things are we doing to attract like either one of those. And so when we're doing big campaigns or we're doing specific targeted things, we're always looking at how do we attract both of those. Generally, I don't even know if we're necessarily going after soccer fans or sports fans. We're going after people who want to come out and have an amazing time. I guess we'll call it event fans or experience fans. Maybe that's a good description for them. In our department, we're the most insulated when it comes to team performance, when it comes to whether there's a great player that's coming or not. If there is a great player that's coming, it makes it a heck of a lot easier. Without that, there's so many other things that you can kind of structure your group sales around. Touching back on what we just said about, we have found it hard to gather enthusiasm in general to just kind of put out in the marketplace, come out as a group and watch the revolution as they try to win the MLS Cup. That's not necessarily what we're getting people to come in and do, i.e. watch the game, it's great, we want your support. We're generally getting a lot more of our success from major, I guess, factors in what you would think about if you're going to any type of thing. So convenience. The stadium itself is located generally, especially for suburban New England. It's not the mecca where you want to go to, and people laugh at, oh, it's Foxborough, it's in the middle of nowhere, but it's like, it is in the middle of nowhere, but it's also where everybody lives. The idea of, especially people with families, picking up and putting your two kids in the car, driving into Boston, finding parking, getting to the location, getting back in your car at 10 p.m. Mm-hmm. Those are the type of things that we don't have to, it's really one of the big things for group sales. The convenience factor, I feel like we have great pricing. We're definitely not like really low end on the pricing, but when it comes to you're not paying extra for parking, you get an extra amount of time that you can do in the parking lots. That's a real big thing for us, especially when you think about, when you're going into some other stadiums, you always have to allocate, let's call it $100, $200, whatever it is with a family to get your food, your drinks, if you're going to be there for an extended period of time. Whereas a lot of our events, if they're not coming in for hospitality events, which is a different sort of side to what we'll do, then they get to kind of hang out for 2 or 3 hours, bring your grill, your burgers, have a ton of food. It makes it a really family friendly sort of like convenient experience on it. The bigger amount of kind of how we sell groups, especially to the community and youth soccer areas. And that's why the other side of things in terms of competing and doing that isn't as big of a deal when it comes to the group sales. Then staying away from like the community element and the pricing being great and the convenience being great. We also have an incredible facility. Gillette Stadium is being constantly kept up with, and some of our spaces, our premium spaces, our hospitality spaces are incredible. And so we're also able to leverage utilizing those spaces and actually having 24,000 people in a 65,000 seater stadium allows us to then go, okay, well, we have these 7 or 8 amazing hospitality spaces that we have way more flexibility with. So we can kind of tag them in where, again, going back to the Patriots, they wouldn't just be able to utilize a space because it's already plugged in with exactly what happens every time there's 65,000 people here. So that definitely makes it a little easier for us too.
Who are you talking to as your typical group sale? Is it schools, churches? And then what is a lot of your day-to-day look like in either maintaining existing relationships, finding potential new business? What does that look like for you?
So we have a very robust ticket sales staff. I think we're the most I think we have the most ticket sales staff in New England out of the whole of the MLS in terms of numbers. We're in the 30s. I don't know exactly how many people we have. That includes service members, so like people that look after season members.
Wow.
It includes the inside sales squad, which is some of the young staff that come in maybe straight out of college. They want to figure out if the ticket sales is for them, and there's like a robust training program to get them into different departments. And then we have a team specifically working on premium. And that could be selling individual premium product to families or to businesses. And then it could be going after those businesses to do things on behalf of their employees or trying to bring clients out and do that side of things. And then we have the other side of group sales, which I guess is if you just imagine a big bag where it's schools, scouts, youth soccer, family outings, birthday parties, anything you could consider on that side. My department, so I'm the senior group sales manager, and I work in collaboration with those other departments. But the bulk of our business when it comes to group sales is either youth soccer organizations or youth community groups. And I think that all plays into the reasoning of what I had said before of convenience, location, and kind of what the experience is at the Revolution is it's extremely family friendly. Have you ever been to a Patriots game?
No.
I'm sure you've been to a football game in general though, and I would imagine they're all very similar. There's a lot of adults, there's a lot of drinking, which I'm not opposed to. As I said, I used to go to away games, and that was what I was experiencing as a young person. I found it quite entertaining and funny and part of what was enjoyable. But it's funny now that I'm in this business, and what we do really well at our stadium is probably when I was 12, what I would have looked at and gone, that's horrendous. That's not what I want to be part of. Like, it's a family-friendly atmosphere, and seems like everybody's having a very nice time.
Where's the police dogs? Guys, what are we doing here?
Yeah, but it's funny. I've obviously been to Patriots games, and I'm at our home games, and it's such a vast difference in it's not only who's there. I'm sure it's a lot of the same people, but it's like, where are they at? Like, they're there with their full family, and they're enjoying that sort of atmosphere. And again, as much as probably that might be one of the reasons why the Revolution aren't the exciting thing that comes out of New England soccer right now, because of some of the other fan groups and how they've managed to promote themselves on coming out and having a great experience with your family. It's just such a huge positive for what we offer. We'll see how that translates when we go into the new stadium, but I'm not entirely sure how that would because we won't have the parking piece, like I mentioned to you, is such a
right. It adds that community feel. Parts of your pitch might change a little bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome, Joe. Let's get here to our all-time five-a-side, right? Talking about being at the matches, being in the stadium. Talked about your whole city background. I expect we can already shoehorn Gary Brabin in, right? That's your number one. But you have to pick yourself. So you got to tell us where you're playing in this team and that formation, and then who's the four legends that are taking the pitch with you.
So when we're talking five-a-side, we're talking goalkeeper, 4 players outfield.
I like to say that the goalkeeper is philosophical choice. Although I've never played on a pitch like this, whenever I envision the archetypal five-a-side, it's like the short, wide, rectangular goals that you guys have in the UK. That is just burned into my mind. Like, that's always what I envision. Where
that's why I grew up playing on.
You necessarily need a keeper, right? Would you usually?
Oh, you definitely do. Definitely do. Yeah.
Even
you need somebody
like
who's
waist
generally, if they're big,
okay,
and they stand in the middle, then that's half your battle. There is they take up half the goal, and that covers a lot.
Yeah. All right. So in that case, you're taking a keeper then, but who's the rest of your squad then?
So yeah, Gary Brabin would be playing, and during five-a-side, he'd probably be in one of the back spots. People would be terrified to take the ball anywhere near him. As I'd be terrified to make a bad pass also with him being on my team. I would probably have myself, if we're going to go 2 at the back, 2 at the front, and we'll keep the keeper, I'd probably be at the back with him and kind of mix it up there. Hopefully I'd be able to do some type of creativity. So he would batter somebody, get the ball back and roll it to me, and then I'd be able to do something with it. Up top, I'd have Dean Windass, who a lot of people will know him as a Hull City player. He scored probably our most famous goal at Wembley in 2008 when we got promoted to the Premier League. But he was a stalwart of Hull City anyway because he was a local lad. He grew up in Hull. His family's in Hull, and he kind of left fairly early on as a player, and then came back in his later years and delivered. I guess we'll call it. He could have come back and just done a little bit, but he came back and he definitely delivered. So that's what's that? That's 3 players.
Yep.
The goalkeeper. This is a tough one because there's different generations of which goalkeeper I would choose. Growing up, David Seaman was like the keeper for me. My father was also a professional goalkeeper, played for Scunthorpe. I guess does it have to be a professional that people know?
No, it could be anybody. Legend is also a loose term. Yeah. So
my father is a legend, so I'll definitely pop him in the goal.
There you go.
Then he can be even more disappointed at me when I let him down in the defense. And then my final striker, it's probably got to be one of the 2 players. It makes me cringe even saying it, but it's got to be one of Ronaldo or Messi. It makes me cringe because I spent 12 years on soccer camps, and literally every kid that come up to me is Ronaldo or Messi, and you kind of get a bit sick of just talking about them. But being in the MLS now, I guess I should say Messi. But before I joined the Revs, I was always on the Ronaldo team.
More of a Ronaldo guy.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Messi because the 5-a-side, his way of playing and his ability with the ball, I think at that style of game, Messi would be way better to have on your team than Ronaldo. So we'll throw him in there. All
right. Spoiled for choice between the 2, to be honest. If you have to have a bench player, who is your one Rev that you're going to pick as your first sub? You get to play, you get one kick, and then you get subbed out. Who's a player from the Revs pantheon?
There's not even a question with that. Carlos Heel. He is night and day. Saying the greatest player, there's a lot of great players internationally and out there. But as an MLS player, watching him play is so incredible. His balance on the ball. He's still, even now, being head and shoulders above a lot of the players that he's played with in the past few years. Still digs in, still tracks back. There's a lot of great players in the MLS that once the other team get the ball, don't really do much. So he's fully committed to that. Obviously, he won the league MVP in 2021. He's so creative, scores goals. So yeah, Carlos Heel would be my shout.
All right. Last one, Joe. We're wrapping up. We're on the Because Football podcast. Complete the sentence, because football.
That is really tricky. So because of football, we'll say because of football because it's we'll use the punctuation. So because of football, I got to travel the world and experience things that are probably in the top 10 things of my life. I've had children, which was amazing. I have an amazing wife. But within that top 10, there's probably 7, maybe 8 things that are soccer related. So yes, travel experiences and top experiences at that.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. All the way from Hull to Baltimore to Foxborough and, dozens, hundreds of wonderful league grounds in between. Yeah. And then the way you're able to introduce people to the game as well. Now in your current role, it's a great thing to be an ambassador, not just for the Revs, but for the game in general. So thanks for your work with doing that, Joe. Yeah. Really appreciated this. Had a great conversation. What's a good way for people to keep track of what you're up to, or maybe you want to get in touch?
I would say, I'm on LinkedIn. Feel free to say hi, especially if you're in the sports business and you're interested in kind of how we do things and what's going on at the Revolution. But yeah, generally with the Revs, keep an eye on us. I think this season I'm pretty excited. We have a very energetic young coach who's coming in. His energy has been infectious already in the training ground. So I think we're going to be young this year in terms of the balance of the squad, hungry. Like I said, the energy has just been a breath of fresh air. I'm hoping this could be a real sort of positive year for us.
Yeah. And
So
a
watch
World
this
Cup
space.
year, in a World Cup year, you're welcoming the world to a lot of great matchups in Boston. You guys are going to have the Scots up there. You've got Haiti. I think you got
Yeah, I
Norway,
can't believe how lucky we got with the
France, I
games,
think. So you
honestly.
got some really good
Yeah.
matchups.
So I guess
I
if
mean,
you're telling me to reach out to people, if anybody does have England Ghana tickets and doesn't want to go, you can give me a shout.
you might have to. Yeah, you got to get on the waiting list for that. For the last one.
No, I
Fill
have. I
in.
got
Yeah.
I got tickets to the round of 32. Which,
Oh,
if
cool.
Germany win their group, they're going to be in it. Which I assume that I'd hope that's the game I'd get. And then I also picked the third group game that was a choice at Gillette and managed to get through the lottery when we were just
Cool.
kind of guessing. And it's the France versus Norway game.
That's gonna be
So
a great game too. That's a
yes, I
great
mean it's
matchup.
probably one of
Yeah.
the best matchups,
Group
sort of in
games.
the exactly. Having 3 days before that, I think it is the England versus Ghana. I feel a little. I don't know. I think I would
You
have.
could do a swap. You could do a swap. I imagine you guys got a little bit of like the Revs get maybe a little bit of an allotment. Maybe you can trade with somebody, one of your colleagues, and be like, "Hey, I'll work, extra shifts for you or something like that." Like the England Ghana, that's gonna be a very fun game, and to do it, seeing your country in your new home will be a pretty special experience.
Yeah, no, I agree. Hopefully, it works out for me.
Yeah. Get to the horse trading and some of your backroom dealings with that, right? Beautiful. Joe, thank you so much, man. We appreciate you sharing with us, and everybody listening and watching, thank you for being here. You've definitely left with an education about Hull City and the glory of away day travel in the UK, as well as the Revs and all the exciting things happening in New England, and a little bit of an insight into what that looks like as a tickets sales, group sales within an MLS context. So thank you guys for being here. We will see you on the next episode. Peace.
Thanks, Andrew.